It was my brother's second year of teaching. His first year of teaching middle school had gone well enough. He was less triumphant than he thought he'd be. He cried more often than he thought he would. It was a typical first year of teaching. Now it was the first day of school, his second year of teaching. And on this day, my brother's clearest memory is this: the look of shock on his students' face when they realized he'd come back for a second year. They were so used to teachers leaving and leaving and leaving, they could not believe this tall, red-haired guy had actually returned for year two. In this country, we talk a lot about the student dropout rate. But what we don't talk about, and what's equally as important, is the rate at which our teachers are dropping out, especially our teachers in big cities serving schools with the highest needs, the rate at which they are leaving the profession. Before we continue, let's get some definitions down. The teacher dropout rate is basically when a teacher permanently leaves the teaching profession. It's often called the teacher attrition rate. And they might leave for a variety of reasons. They might want to become an administrator, like a principal. They might start a family and choose not to teach. They might do military service and not be able to teach anymore, or they might be unhappy with their job. Now, of course, every job has dropout, right? You don't want anybody, no job has 100% of people staying there. That's not normal. There's a natural dropout rate that occurs in every single profession, within reason. Also associated with this is the teacher mobility rate, which basically means when teachers are still teaching but move from one school or district to another school or district. And they might do this for similar reasons. They might have better benefits or salary in that new area. Their family might move, or maybe they're unhappy with their current school or district. I'd like to do a little scenario with you all. There's a little divide down the room here. So I would like you all to imagine in this room that you are teachers, okay? Some of you are teachers right now, so just keep being you, but those of you who are not teachers, pick your favorite big city in the world and you are teaching there, all right? Lesson plans are due Monday, okay? All right, this half of the room, please raise your hands. All right, in 5 years, you teachers are gone. You are no longer teaching. Goodbye. Your hands down. Yep, you're out of here. All right, now this side of the room, hands up. You did it. You did it. You were there for more than 5 years. You are so brave for teaching in these city schools. We are going to do whatever we can to keep you supported, keep you happy, and keep you there. Please don't ask about your pensions. The reality, however, is exactly this. In 5 years, half of our teachers are leaving the teaching profession. In 5 years, 50% of our teachers are gone. If you or somebody you know thinks that teaching is easy, here's your proof that teaching is hard. Half the people are leaving. What other job in the world has a dropout rate this high? I'll tell you which job. The Army's Special Forces. The Special Forces has a dropout rate around 70%, which makes sense, right? It's a very rigorous training process. We want the best of the best defending our country. But wait a minute, if 70% of Special Forces are dropping out and 50% of our teachers are dropping out, that implies that preparing for a war abroad is only slightly more difficult than teaching in Baltimore or Chicago or New York or Oakland or Los Angeles or Dallas. You get the idea. Something is wrong here. Looking a little bit closer, in an urban area like Chicago, similar dropout rate. In Chicago, 5 years, half the teachers are leaving. And looking even closer in Chicago, in 22 months, over a third of teachers are gone. Now, it's strange because in any other profession in the world, people generally leave their job because they feel like they can get a new job that's better very easily. That's why most other people leave. But not so for teachers. The most common reason that teachers cite leaving is that they're dissatisfied with their current job. It's not that they're tempted by something new, they're repelled by their current state. Now, teachers typically drop out for two reasons. One, they're overwhelmed by the expectations. And two, they feel unsupported and isolated. And isn't it strange, though, that the schools with the highest teacher dropout rates are also the worst performing schools in the nation, typically schools in impoverished African American communities? I'll answer that question. No, that's not odd. That makes total sense. If you're a student, what kind of pride can you have in your school or in yourself if your teachers don't even want to be there? Right now, this is the number we live with in our country. And the problem is that we often focus on this 50% that stays, and we ignore this half that leaves. And we forget that these are people that join the job with passion and enthusiasm and lesson plans in hand, and a lot of them even had years of experience, and yet still they're walking out of the job so that the next group of 5-year dropouts can take their place. And the next group of 5-year dropouts can take their place. And the next group, and the next group, and this is a revolving door that needs to be locked. When teachers leave, the effects are far-reaching. Students are negatively affected when teachers drop out. Research shows that students perform worse when teacher dropout rates are high. Especially for our at-risk students, students that come from single-parent, impoverished homes, they need that support more than anybody. And what does that look like? It looks like stability. It looks like talking to a teacher for 1 minute in the classroom every single day. It looks like having an adult advocate in the building that you can talk to, or when you graduate, you can come back to. Our students need that stability. Schools are also negatively affected when teachers drop out. I'm a teacher in Chicago Public Schools. I love my job, but I want to talk about you. Think of your job right now, and imagine if every 2 years, a third of your coworkers were gone. How would you feel? Would you feel supported? Would you feel that camaraderie? Now imagine if every 5 years, half your coworkers were gone. How do you feel? This is the sentiment of many teachers across our country. Parents, of course, want the best for their children. They want to know that when the teacher's there, they're there dedicated to their child. They don't want to have to ask you, are you going to be here for more than a year, or are you going to leave again, like the other teachers? They want to know you're there for their child. Every parent wants that for their child. Of course, communities are also negatively affected because our schools are a community resource. When the school is performing badly, the effects are far-reaching in that community. It explodes outwards in a negative way. Of course, if the school is performing well, it explodes outwards in a positive way. The community is positively affected. But when teachers leave, the communities are also negatively affected. Of course, this is not a local issue. This is a national issue affecting our entire country. And this is a global issue because lack of student success here affects teacher success, and it goes back to student success. And lack of innovation here means lack of innovation worldwide. What we are talking about is a teacher retention crisis. If you're not somebody who cares about the money, if you're not somebody who cares about the numbers, maybe you care about the money, because it costs $7.3 billion with a B dollars a year to recruit, hire, and try and keep new teachers. I think we're only focusing on one part of this, the recruitment. If you look in our country, in Chicago specifically, Chicago recently signed contracts with organizations like Teach for America, Chicago Teaching Fellows, and Golden Apple, organizations that get diverse teachers to teach in high-needs areas. Now that's great, we need those people. But the problem is that we're focusing so much on recruitment and we are ignoring retention. What are we doing to keep those effective teachers in the classroom? Of course, people ask this question, it needs to be addressed. Why is teacher retention important? Are new teachers okay too? And this should be addressed. And to answer this, I'd like to do a little role play with you all. Good morning, everybody. My name is Captain Mike. I'll be your pilot today. This is my first year flying. I made a lot of mistakes, but I've learned from each and every one of them. And I know I'll make mistakes today too, but I thank you in advance for supporting me through those. There's a lot of flashing buttons up here, so I should probably get to work. But sit back and relax. I'll try to also. And we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks. Okay. If you heard that, you would be terrified, right? Every pilot has a first year, but when you got on that plane, you want to know that pilot has experience. When you eat at a restaurant, you want to know the chef has experience. When you go to a college course, you want to know that that professor has experience. The same goes for our kindergarten teachers and our high school biology teachers. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. What I'm claiming is that experience helps. And some of you might be thinking of that bad teacher. Some of you had them when you were students. Some of you know them personally. That teacher that swipes in, swipes out. They're not there for the kids. We all know that person. But if we're going to talk about that, let's be honest about two things. Number one, every job has that person. Every profession in the world has a person that doesn't pull their weight, that's there for the paycheck. Every job has that. Reality check number two, let's agree that most teachers aren't that bad teacher. That teachers are there. That teachers are there for the right reasons. I don't care if you're new, if you're experienced, or if you're tenured. Obviously, you've made it through the gauntlet of the 50% mark. You're there for the right reasons. Let's agree on that. Experience helps. Of course, there are solutions to this. Solution number one to stopping the teacher dropout rate from being so awful: boost the status of educators. Teachers should never feel pressured to leave or to become administrators. Of course, we need great principals. We need great assistant principals. But a teacher should never feel like they're not getting respected enough, and they need to do that to get respected. Why should we do that? Because teaching is not short-term national service. Okay? Teaching is not a program. Teaching is not something you do because you're not sure what to do next, so you teach in the meantime until you figure it out. Teaching is for life. That should be the expectation. It is very frustrating when I meet somebody and I say, "Hi, what do you do?" And they say, "Oh, I'm just a teacher." Just a teacher? I'm just an astronaut. I'm just the Pope. No, yo soy un maestro, right? Be proud of that. And I continually get frustrated when I see somebody at a party and they say, "Greg, I know you're a teacher in Chicago. That's wonderful. What's next?" What's next? Nothing. This is kind of the end point for me. I didn't get into teaching to be Chancellor of Education. I did it to make a difference in the world, and that should be okay. That should be the expectation. Solution number 2, collaboration among principals and teachers. What this looks like is that the principals are not dogmatic. They don't command things of their teachers, and teachers are receptive with their principals. I'm very lucky to work at a school where our principal asks committees to be formed. And instead of commanding it, they say, "We should have a teacher lead this committee." And other teachers will buy in, and they'll be part of the committee. If you want a voice, join the committee. If you don't join the committee, do what they say. Because then teachers have buy-in. We support the system, and with that, we have a positive and supportive school community, and we want to stay there. Solution number 3, an organization called Unite, Urban Needs and Teacher Education. This is a nonprofit that I work with in addition to being a full-time teacher, and we're doing something that I don't think is being done anywhere else in the world. We help to prepare teachers before they're even teachers. We begin Unite chapters at colleges, and we have university students preparing for their urban teaching experience before they're even in the classroom. When they're in college, they're bringing in community activists and asking what our classroom should look like. They're Skyping with current student teachers and asking how it's going. And they're preparing so that their senior year, when they do student teaching, they're already ready. They're not experts, but they're ready to do what Samuel Beckett said, and to try again, to fail better. And then we support them through their student teaching with workshops, bring in community members. We have a summer camp that helps to get them to jobs. And then, of course, when they graduate, we continue to try and get them jobs and keep them supported in teaching. Our goal is to lower the teacher dropout rate. And I can talk about this so passionately because I went through Unite's programming when I was a student teacher. And I would not be here today if I didn't go through Unite. I would be one of those negative 50%. Solution number 4, teachers' unions. I'm making a call to all the unions to continue the workshops and networking you're doing and to expand both. As somebody, now, there's a reason that this is simple, because if the longer a teacher's career, the more invested they are in that union. That's good for the union. And the longer, if we retain union members, we are retaining teachers. Despite the bickering that occurs between boards of education and unions, we have a common goal, which is success for our students, which means successful teachers. Let's work together and keep our teachers and keep our union members. That can happen. Solution number 5, mentor new teachers. Every teacher needs a mentor, somebody they can go to and say, "Hey, this is what happened in my class today, what should I do?" Or, "Oh my God, this was so cool in class today, I want to talk to you about it." Every teacher needs that experienced veteran they can go to and say, "Can I get your help?" This can also happen within a school district. It can happen from your university. I'm lucky to have a tenured teacher as my mentor, and I would not be where I am today without her help. And it's reciprocal. She feels supported with me too. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but somebody that we can talk with. And why do we do this? Because research has shown that high levels of mentoring plus support means that a new teacher has a more positive experience and wants to stay at that school. Here are the 5 solutions I've talked about. That 6th one is a call to action for you. Talk to teachers, talk to parents, talk to principals, and make this happen. Because right now, this is the reality we live with. Half of our teachers are leaving the job. But can you imagine a future where instead of the dropout rate being this, it was this? Or instead of being that, it was that? We can keep 80% of our teachers. That is possible. But we have to address this in the right way. But until that happens, this is the reality we live with. Now, my time is almost up. I have to get out of here. My red cheeks have to get out of here. But this issue is not going anywhere. Before I leave, I want to tell you one more time about my brother. Remember the one whose students were so shocked when he returned? His 3rd year of teaching, they kind of got used to him. And they were shocked again his 4th year of teaching when he dropped out. Why? You already know why. He wasn't supported, didn't have a mentor, he felt overwhelmed. As he says, he stopped believing in the mission. As a country, we need to refocus our efforts to ensure that every single teacher continues believing in the mission, so that they never drop out, and so that truly no child is left behind. Thank you.